I think Michelle's about to press record. Oh, we are. Okay.
David, you're just on mute.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. I'll get back to my screen and just let me know if everyone can see it on full screen. It's because I can't see anyone's faces when it's on full screen.
Yep, it's good.
Sweet. Okay. So look, with Chad coming on board, one of the things we learnt very early on was to start to put everything into frameworks, and that's where we decided to go back to basics on a lot of things. So we had product market fit. We had by that time, end of August, September, we had founder market fit as well, and the messaging was right. Everything was resonating, and it was now a matter of ensuring that when we go out to market with a product and we get it tested again and validated, that there was a system in place that would scale up and work. And I'll let Chad talk a lot more about that later, about a lot of the technical work which has been going on in the background. But a lot of the things which has been implemented include the concept of breaking this into the concept of like investigations. So when there's like a complaint and understanding these conversations in detail, where is that missing sales transaction? Pamela West reached out to the business and now we've freaking lost that email. What the hell's going on? When the whole process starts at whether you want to call it an investigation, it's going to be a search or a discovery process of some kind. So that's where we took all the layers apart. We thought we had it out to market. We had a lot of people going through it with us. We had the advisors, mentors, and exactly what it says on the screen here, went back to basics. So we went through more iterations with Progress Claim. Once again, probably tiring the hell out of Ray. And I would love to say, if Ray was here, just thank you so much for your help. It's been paramount to where we are today as a team in Wovion and how we've just progressed. Like October 2017 was that 12 months milestone where I was saying to Adam, wow, I can't believe it's 12 months. That's 12 months of literally customer service, conversations, business analysis, marketing, product fit, competitor. The list goes on, just day in, day out of understanding customer conversations to death. We are, if anything, I believe Wovion's going to be or is already the experts in the marketplace just for that. I don't know any other organization which will understand it as the depth of we even writing thought leadership articles here. And Adam's releasing 4,000 word articles just about customer conversations. And, we went through a significant data set of conversations from both Dave's deals, e-commerce conversations. And one of the other things which we extracted out of all of this was we completely overlooked the concept of conversations between the system and the user, and internally conversations, for example, between invoicing systems and their own internal notification systems. So we just realized that this was a holy grail moment turned into a holy crap moment. It's like, this was a massive, big problem. We thought we had it from day one, and we have been coming to that realization that, once we've got all these frameworks in place, that's when we can handle the sheer volume of conversations. That's when we can actually now understand that a lot of these conversations come from, many different types of sources as well. We thought just by coming from an SMS, notification from WhatsApp, Facebook chat message, all of these multi-channel approaches, we thought we could just combine them into one single customer view, stitch them all together, call it Wovion, and bang, you've got data warehousing all in one. Although, thanks to Chad, we've just come to the appreciation of ensuring that we have a framework in place so that we can support, hundreds of millions of conversations comfortably. And that's where we are right now. So the end of November, once again, we've been going back to our pilot customers and ensuring that we are satisfying, some very, very, very essential goalposts here. their number one problem. Trying to find that conversation, trying to find it so that we need to implement something, the concept of traceability and investigations. So here you can see a typical screen that we've implemented where it's solving that one problem. There's conversations coming in from multiple channels. Mind you, Chad's been building the robustness and the functionality all in the background. He's been furiously coding it, that aspect of it away, but we've been still utilizing the concept which has worked for us really well, which is iterating on the front end. And rather than spending engineering resources on implementing all these changes on the screen, we've gone back to basics, ensured we've had the frameworks in place first, and then iterating very, very fast on these mock-ups and prototypes, and sharing that with the likes of Ray, Ben, David Smith, and Ryan Benici as well. So these conversations, we're implementing this concept of a data warehousing, which is how we're going to be launching out to market. That is their number one problem across the board, and we want to focus on what's the most important for them. So we understand like concepts such as open conversations and who's been replying to what. And as you can see on the screen here as well, each conversation has you can see there's little boxes in between all these conversations. They're actually tags. So every conversation is being tagged, whether that be in the future very soon via AI, which thanks to the help of Dennis Chan advising on that front to help us with the framework to implement, and Chad and John Lowe and Dennis working together on some concepts around that, and also leveraging off the work from Joey and Peter Scott and the rest of the team behind that, just to ensure that we've got some meaningful concept behind machine learning of these conversations. So moving forward on that front, then for example, if you click on one of these conversations, we want to see a bit of depth of these conversations as well, what's actually happening. And these screens allow us to experiment with, how we want this to look. Where do we want to take that user to? What type of interactions do we want to have on the screen as well? And, for example, if they are needing to search for conversations, universally, what does that mean? Like, it's across obviously multiple channels, and it's obviously across the concepts of tagging and also groups of tagging and interrelationships between the tagging. So we've gone into this hyper-focused, detailed understanding of customer conversations that we never had before 12 months ago. The combination of a lot of this through customer iterations as well as feedback from them. And one of the greatest things here is we've got, whilst we only got a handful of pilot customers, which you can count on your left hand or your right hand, there's only 3 or 4. We're getting the richness and amount of data and the feedback regularly from them, which is really important, and it allows us to then hone in on our January time schedule to work on a interface which is going to be interactive. So like for example, moving forward, we've also been getting feedback so that once you do go through one of these conversations, you can see a form of reply framework, which is your early stage of AI being implemented, and you can see the types of details where it is being interconnected to other messages which are coming through. For example, this is an example where Philip Sherman has a problem with his box set, and we want to understand from that conversation, how can we help them with their order? And immediately in the background, Wovion is pulling up all those interrelated messages related to this order, and they could be from the system, in this case here being an invoice for Philip Sherman for that specific order on that specific date. It's going to save the customer service agent over a lot of the feedback we've been given. Anything from progress claim was 3 to 4 hours. Something like this in a typical day's deal scenario would have been like 15 or 20 minutes, digging through, going through, sifting through, going back and forth, double checking with the customer. But hey, this happens literally in seconds for the user. And offering a solution is about whether we want to just do the pre-suggested responses and customizing that based on AI, or having that preset template where the agent can also customize it based on their persona, based on how they want to be personalizing it back to the customer. And that's one of the overarching missions here for Wovion, is to enable, as a product, Wovion enable all of our users to continue to deliver a personalized message and a personalized customer service experience of how many customers they have on board. And that is what's missing in the marketplace, and that's what we truly believe we'll be able to deliver. So, I'll skip through this really quickly, but we've also understood that conversations do occur across multiple teams and multiple team members, as well as multiple channels, and that's something which we're iterating once again through the screens, rather than actually spending once again another 3-4 weeks of development time and then getting them to test it. We're actually doing is getting this tested through mock-ups, and we're finding that in the past it's worked really well, and it's going to continue to work moving forward. And we believe we've got it honed down to that sweet spot that it's going to deliver that 80% of the impact we need, just based on 20% effort. So where to from here? So over the next December, January, February, which coincides with a lot of the funding rounds, which institutional raise, which Adam mentioned at the start, we are going to focus on selling Wovion as a data warehousing solution. We are providing AI and ML as a solution in the back end specifically for enterprises who want to upsell, as an upsell solution. And because we already have that data warehousing solution available, we're going to be focusing on that feature as the sign up. And once again, we also have January as a significant product demo period. So one of the main fences for us to come across right now is ensuring that we have some working demos available so that the enterprise customers can see what we have available. And we're also only going to keep this within a closed beta as well. So within our network, there are approximately about 5 potential enterprise clients who we will be charging for as well. In return for their data and feedback, we'll be giving them a significant discount, but we believe by doing that strategically, we will get an open opportunity to several more enterprise customers. So that's the last slide on sales. Any questions so far, guys? Anyone wants to throw a question at me? Anyone wants to take a stab at something?
Yeah, Dave. With the mock-up with the list of conversations for
Yep.
operator at the back, what's the quickest way to sort of know the status of each of the messages, whether the agent's already replied to them or is waiting for the customer response?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we are iterating on that screen right now, and what we intend at this screen level here, for example, where we've clicked on the conversation for Philip Sherman, is actually get a detailed understanding, for example, in that blue space you're seeing here, potentially to display, for example, are there any other open conversations from Philip Sherman? So Philip Sherman could have been reaching out here obviously for a complaint because his order's been pretty much stuffed up. But we also want to view potentially that he's got maybe 2 orders outstanding which he's about to close and he's just unsure. And this is where someone could actually then intervene, whether it be via intercom or some other channel, to actually say, look, Philip, don't leave this order hanging there. Like, let's close it. We know you've got these 2. We've solved this other problem for you. Now let's move on.
Okay. I was just wondering, even from the overall view of all the messages, whether there's a quick way to see like the current status, whether agent needs attention right away, as opposed to clicking through each of the messages to get the information. One of the things I'm sort of basing it off is like some of the vendors I deal with, they've got their own ticketing systems, and that actual handy thing about one of them in particular is actually having the status either, like on a view, I can see which of the tickets I logged with the vendors that I need to actually action right away, as opposed to ones I'm waiting for them for feedback. And so basically every conversation there's a status and who the party is waiting for, basically, for response.
Yeah, Jimmy, I think that's pretty common with a lot of this. And I think another scenario we even found was when people come in, they have an issue, we realize, our system's broken. We need to pass it around internally, come to a consensus internally, fix something internally, and then get back to our customers. That's another kind of concern we run across as well. A lot of what we're doing on the UI side internally is making a fairly comprehensive underlying tag system. The tag system is something we'll probably talk a little bit more about in the future, but everything is going to be related on tags but we want to make sure that it comes across seamlessly to the person who's using it. So we want you to be able to set up kind of on your sidebar, like your own little box in a way, which is that fits your workflow. And so I think we'll probably have kind of a wizard interface that allows people to kind of set up the types of things you're talking about, because a lot of industries are going to have exactly the same thing.
That's actually a really good idea, to actually just leverage the label system and let them, basically you're giving them the tools and they can dictate however they want to use it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so awesome. One of the things too is even moving away from the concept of folders. And I'm
for sure.
But the tagging system is going to have a lot of meta information about it. There's going to be an underlying lexicon that people are going to be able to use. There's going to be a lot of linkings to internal systems, and this is a lot of the stuff we're talking about to support the enterprise crowd. And we're going to be rolling these things out over time because it's very complicated. And I'll talk more about even the process of rolling out here in a little bit. But please keep calling us these types of things, because these are the things we're trying to build up.
Yep. Sweet. No, that's good. Awesome.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. One of the great things about customer service is we acknowledge, we listen, and we take action. So yeah, that's really what we've been doing, is actually listening to people like yourself, giving us that feedback, and yeah, this is great. So, moving forward, I suppose my other role here is ensuring that I not only like speaking to the potential customers on a regular basis, but then get exposure to actually building up, together with the help of Michelle, that marketing funnel / sales funnel. And for the enterprise anyway, this is basically my slide for sales, and I'm not going to fluff it or bullshit or anything. I'm going to say we don't have any sales yet, but we do have a very, very healthy funnel, and we do have a very healthy prospect lead, and that's based on the work which we've been doing once again with Ryan Benici. Just a lot of those initial conversations and mentioning some of the great advisors we have on board is helping us leverage the opportunities to expand overseas as well, like in the US market. We haven't even touched the US market yet in terms of like strong leads yet, but definitely in the Australian market, we've got the likes of David Smith, who's got exposure still to, direct exposures to the founder level of a lot of the top e-commerce companies. And I don't want to necessarily mention any names here, only because I know that this is going to be released across, multiple channels as a recording. And as well, we've got someone by the name of Pete Mulvey. Now, Pete Mulvey, I'm not sure many of you guys will recall, but Jimmy, Pete was actually in the 3 Weeks group. And, 3 Weeks was one of those startups at iCentral. And they're consultancy company. They specialize in enterprise. And like a lot of their deals are in the 6 figures and up. And now they've actually gone IPO. And through this experience with Pete Mulvey, we're now honing in on things such as like our prospective client pre-sales implementation, enterprise metrics, and we're honing in on all this sort of sales metrics, even from David Smith, and what we need to do from a target point of view for the e-commerce side. One of the other things we've come to realize as our total addressable market is taking a realistic snapshot of exactly what we need to do. So, the typical saying is everyone becomes a millionaire on Excel, and we've taken that we've taken that literally, and then made sure that we're reflecting on our numbers in terms of like what's actually the addressable market. So the big light blue circle here represents the total addressable market, which for the enterprise sake, for the example here, we're talking potentially something in the region of over it's like 120,000 enterprise customers who we want to actually target, because they have a revenue over a certain number of X $1 million that we want to look for, because they're dealing with over 300-400 conversations per agent per day. That's an ideal type of customer for us in the enterprise segment. And we know, based on our growth model, that we're only wanting to target a very, very specific amount of them, and we've honed in on that number, and that number is achievable, and we're lining that all up, both on the marketing side and myself with our advisors going out to reach out to that network and growing that network so that we can achieve some kind of revenue by ideally our goalpost for that will be in the by the second half of 2018. I don't want to give a specific number. I think it's best that Adam talks about that in terms of our financials and how we're raising and stuff like that. And these numbers look very, very achievable. Definitely achievable. We're talking about something which will allow us to grow comfortably to the Series A round, which I'll let also Adam talk about in the near future. So that's our sales opportunities are there. We have our funnel set up in HubSpot. We have the game plan in place. So the next things we need to do from a sales point of view is get the demos out, get the demos in the hands of David Smith, Pete Mulvey, several of the other advisors who are working with us, so that they can talk to their connections and their networks. Just as a number there, within our network alone, the enterprise availability there is over about 60 companies already, of which, for alone, David Smith has already been talking to a good number of those, and a lot of them have been giving the sort of knock on the door, like, when can we get in the meeting with Wovion? It's still there. None of the bridges have been burnt, and everyone's still warmed up to the idea. Now, even with economic changes or changes with the marketplace, even with like Amazon coming to the marketplace, everyone's looking at how they can reduce their overall headcount or cost of operations. So we're also in a very, very good opportunity and market here for Wovion, even in the e-commerce space. And a handful of startups have also approached us as well. That's not also to include the opportunities which we haven't included in any of our investor packs or the mentions which Adam's been talking to a lot of our potential investors about some of the new market opportunities which are coming through. We haven't even included the plugin market opportunity where people can be monetizing on our platform and selling their plugins, which Chad will talk about in terms of how we're actually building, or how we have built the actual underlying infrastructure for that. And there are like industries which are approaching us, which we wouldn't have even thought about, that are now thinking about using Wovion. And Robbie is going to talk briefly about that from some of the UI, UX experimentations. And it just highlights a case where we can rapidly come out with a sellable visual mockup and generate so much vibe and attention to it that it's like, wow, this is like we've just opened the door from a 60,000 target addressable market to a target size of about 8,500 who'll be interested in our product if we actually get the messaging right. So that's all for me from a product as well as a sales point of view. I'll now pass the microphone over to Michelle to take it on.
Cool. Thank you so much, David. Were there any questions on the sales front? If not, in the interest of time, let's hand over to Chad on development.
Okay. Howdy, y'all. Let me bring up a presentation here. Let me see if I think David has to release. There we go. Let me grab it. Okay, so here's the big thing. What have we been up to? And Wovion is covering. There we go. Okay. Computers. I just lost my mouse. I have no idea where I'm pointing at. Thank you, Zoom. Okay. So, oh my gosh, I can't. Let me try this again. Sorry, all. All right. So really what I've been working on since, so David gave a pretty good overview about where we're going and what's happening with the product. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the underlying architectural issues that we're working on, some of the goals we've been looking at. So right now, my goal since I've been on board here is to work on some of the concepts and some of the design goals, the underlying ideas for the system. But on the development side, which I think is really critical right now for my task, is I'm preparing the system to scale. So we're talking capacity issues, testing, security, process for this. So I think shortly, when we start bringing in some money, that's when we start bringing in developers, and I want them to be hitting the ground running. So we'll be having our own developers and also plugin developers in the marketplace that David was talking about. So the big architectural changes are a shift towards using containers and microservices for Wovion. So whereas before, you can see down over here, there's kind of a big block of code that ran on Amazon AWS. And so, we had a big block of code and that was running there, and everyone worked on that big block of code. By using containers, we're able to take the code that we have, put it on this little Docker process, run that on our laptops, and run that in the cloud. So basically, we are now able to run the entire Wovion system on our laptop, which is a pretty critical little thing, because now all of our developers are able to run locally, test locally, do everything locally before even putting it up to the cloud. In addition to that, when they do put it up to the cloud, it runs the exact same thing that they were running locally. So this is just a much better development process and pipeline that we put into place. In addition to that, by using a microservice architecture, as opposed to having one monolithic application that runs, we divide that down into little pieces. And the beauty of that is that we're able to really ramp those things up for parallel operation to give us capacity and to scale our product. But it's also a lot simpler to work on smaller components for testing purposes, debugging, and upgrading. So we're going to be moving rapidly. And the best way to move rapidly is to be able to tweak things, make the change, test, use, go on to the next thing, test, use. So we're entering kind of a sprint mentality for our development cycle here. Please interrupt if you have any questions as well. A major change I've been looking at is this plugin engine as well. So one of the things we want to be able to do is handle just a flood of information that's out there on these remote services like Facebook, email, Intercom, and Gmail. And previously, we were offering something called the Wovion SDK, which was a small little library that dealt with sending information from these remote services to Wovion. What we've done is we've taken the little bits of code that are out there, split them apart into a couple different microservices, and that's where we're getting our worker and gatekeeper processes. Now, what's fun about that is now we don't have one little plugin that's sitting there talking to big old Facebook and talking to big old Wovion. Now what we have is the ability to fire up multiple processes. And any plugin developer is going to be able to have that just out of the box to use our system. And in fact, really the only thing that plugin developers have to do is implement the setup with the remote server. So basically they have to implement these little arrows here and override a couple of functions within these little microservices that we have here. So they're going to gain all the capacity that our plugins themselves are going to have. They're going to have a lot of the benefits and the communication, everything we're going to be using, they're going to be using. So we're eating our own dog food on this case. And as well, David mentioned the marketplace. So this is really going to support our marketplace, because if we can have plugin developers show up, write a simple little plugin in a matter of a day or two, we're going to have we're going to have that active marketplace. It's going to be a revenue stream for us, but more importantly, that's going to be something that our customers can rely on to have high quality plugins they can add, drop in, and improve the Wovion experience. Data warehousing is something that's just a natural fit for Wovion. So a lot of our customers are looking at data warehousing for compliance issues. So they need to make sure that they store and retain data for a certain period of time. They need to try and figure out ways to manage all this information about customers that literally is scattered across the web. So that's the Wovion experience. So when we're talking about doing data warehousing and selling that as a business or as a benefit to our customers, we're already doing that. So this whole capacity that we're building into our system right now is really just a natural fit to support data warehousing, to get an early revenue stream, and to build people or get people into the Wovion product. And I think Adam was talking about before, which is basically it's a lot easier to get someone to pay $9.99 for a product now. I'm sorry, it's a lot easier to get someone to pay $50 for a product for more processes, more benefits to them, to go from 9 to 50 than it is to go from 0 to 9. So if we can get people on board with data warehousing, we can get them on board with many of the benefits that we're going to be rolling out in the future. I didn't throw that off, did I, David? Or did I, Adam?
No, that was perfect.
All right. You got a tech person talking sales here. For our roadmap here, as I said, we're looking at doing some data warehousing, and that's probably going to come in around the January timeframe. Most of the things that we have to build for that are in process. We may have to do a lot of optimization over time, but I feel very comfortable saying January is a good time frame. I was really trying hard to get a Facebook demo for the plugin on this, and I wasn't able to get it done, mostly because of some of the UI issues right now. So to support data warehousing, really we just have to implement some billing in our back end, and then we should be ready to go with that. The next thing we're going to focus on, and that's going to be a couple of months afterwards, is supporting those small businesses and bringing them on board, getting them some early functionality that's really to support what they're working on. And to support small businesses, I think what we've talked about for our best bet is to actually get into the Shopify marketplace. So it's a really active small business community. It has a real active marketplace, so people are used to spending money there. And so it'd be something that we'll be able to put something out. And since there really isn't a good fit, there isn't a platform like Wovion in that marketplace, we're hoping to get some early customers quickly through that process. After that, then we really have to focus on the features. And I think the more features we roll out to support our small business customers, we're going to start getting closer and closer to being a major beneficial product to the enterprise market. So supporting enterprise, they have their existing software investments, they have their existing processes, they have their existing customers. And so it's going to take a lot of benefit on our end to get them to really jump on board Wovion. So I think by this iterative process of listening to customers and going from there is really what's going to get us into that market. So if I had to say what we're doing, what the mentality is of what we're doing, it's merging good design with machine learning. And that's what a lot of these features are about. So we've talked a little bit about tagging, and Jimmy, you brought up some issues, and I mentioned it's in the tagging. The tags we're going to be using are going to support the business rules and the routing of information inside of these customers. And that's really going to be a benefit to people. And saving time for them, building up the investigations. So the tags we're using, as David was talking about before, they're going to be used to organize information inside of the company, gather conversations around certain topics into these investigations, and collect information about internal conversations, any types of processes going on, and use that as a single point of discussion for people. So one of the things we talked about was you have a bug, you have a problem, you gather all your customer issues, you send it over to development. Development is able to link right to it, understand everything all at one spot. They have their own conversations about it. They solve the problem, hand it back to customer service, and customer service is able to get back to all their customers. So we're trying to support that type of a workflow. As well, these tags are going to be the analytics and the exploration process that we're going to be providing to our customers. I'm just going to click on, I have more information about each of these, and I don't want to steal too much thunder from Robbie, so I'm only going to click on some of the tags. So, because Jimmy, you mentioned this before. So tag isn't going to be a little bit of unknown information. We're building out this tagging lexicon. So for the product safety, the food safety business that we're going to be talking about, we'll have tags that represent ingredients, products, processes, deliveries, suppliers. So you're able to make mention of things like a cabbage is an ingredient, prep cabbage is an ingredient as well. So cabbage, when it goes through the process, becomes prep cabbage. Prep cabbage turns into string rolls. So if the system itself, if Wovion starts to learn about these types of relationships, then we're able to do many types of fun things with understanding the process people deal with, understanding how to respond to people, and basically improving the workflow people have when they're responding to customers, because Wovion understands your business practices. So that magic I'd love to talk to you guys about, but that's something we're going to be building out slowly in little bits to support our direction once our customers are telling us where they want us to go. Any questions about that? Not all at once. Okay.
Actually,
Well,
a question about the data warehousing, actually.
Yeah.
Is there specific regions that we're sort of hosting those services at? Because I imagine like with data warehousing with some sort of sensitive industries that, require within country retentions and those compliance rules and stuff like that, that kind of forces the hand in terms of physically where it needs to be stored. So we need to sort of have a strategy that's regionally flexible, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of the benefit of using Amazon to support this, is the fact that they have computers all over the world, and we just set it up to be in whatever region they're dealing with. And also that microservice architecture means that we just set up pretty much an instance of Wovion over there, and now they're compliant because the data is literally stored within that country. We're limited by the locations of Amazon, I guess, in that respect. But I think we're going to be pretty safe in dealing with those types of issues.
I think there's enough coverage with what the reach of Amazon, at least for now.
Yeah. I mean, again, that microservice architecture we're talking about and these little containers, that architecture is really going to help us out in the long run because we're just going to fire up another instance and it's going to operate over there.
That's it. Completely agree. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Jimmy. I'm going to have to send out another Zoom link to move on to UI UX by Robbie. Next email. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.